Hello, I'm Keith Baker, the Artistic Director of Bristol Riverside Theatre. Welcome to the first production of our 29th season. We're always pleased to welcome back our friends who've been such good supporters of the theatre and its mission over the years. And a special welcome to any new audience members joining us for the first time. We're thrilled to have you with us for the journey. I'd also like to welcome all of you to our first video lecture presentation. This is a completely new idea for all of us here at BRT, and we're excited to try it and to share it with all of you. It is our hope that these videos will give you a deeper insight into the plays and productions you're going to be watching. We'll spend time with the creative teams that put our shows together and have the chance to introduce you to the directors and designers. So you'll get to see more about what it takes to put one of our productions on the stage. We begin our 29th season with the classic comedy Bus Stop. Bus Stop was written by William Inge, who also wrote Picnic and Come Back Little Sheba, Dark at the Top of the Stairs, and the screenplay for Splendor in the Grass. Our production of the play was directed by Susan Atkinson, and has an outstanding cast that features Broadway veterans, BRT favorites, and, of course, some new faces. I'm certain you'll enjoy it. Thanks again for joining us.
Lay not up treasures for yourself on earth.
Splendor in the Grass. Natalie Wood and Warren Beatty, troubled lovers in a Kansas town, look closely at the pastor.
For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also.
The pastor is William Inge, not an actor, but a great writer, winning the Academy Award for writing Splendor in the Grass.
William Inge became synonymous with the Midwestern small-town story.
Mike Wood, Media Resource Director at Wichita State, is a William Inge expert.
During the 50s, he was considered one of the three top playwrights on Broadway. The three reigning playwrights were Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, and William Inge.
Very lofty company for the native of Independence, whose hometown and people figured prominently in his stories.
People in Independence could recognize incidents and even people in the town.
The 1950s, Come Back Little Sheba, Picnic, Bus Stop, and The Dark at the Top of the Stairs. Picnic winning the Pulitzer Prize as Play of the Year. All hit plays, all hit movies, ranking him among the best.
Still today, I think most scholars and other playwrights would rank him up there in the top 20.
Just say whatever's in your heart, Wilmadine.
But if Inge had a way with words, he had little way with life.
He was a troubled man. He was unhappy. He was dealing with depression and alcohol and his sexuality.
He took his own life at the age of 60 in 1973, coming back to the Mount Hope Cemetery in Independence, home in both body and spirit.
6 Tony winners, 2 Pulitzer Prize winners at the 30th Annual William Inge Theater Festival, Independence Community College, Independence, Kansas.
The Inge Theater Festival is a success story. Playwrights and actors coming to the Inge Theater from around the country to honor writers. Just part of his legacy.
After he died, that the family said in his will he wanted his papers to come to Independence Community College.
And they did. A special room in the college library, the life's work of a man whose stories of small-town lives have been acted by some of the best.
I never been to Kansas before. Maybe you can tell me where Benson lives.
We were arguing about that dress. You got to take it back.
You know, I think he is crazy.
Sure he is. Crazy as a bedbug. I told you he was.
You know what it does to you.
Oh, I know what it does to me. Makes me want to come home and look at you.
After 17 years, it seems to me you'd be ready to accept me the way I am.
What is pizza?
You don't know what pizza is? Where are you from?
From Kansas.
Is it nice out there in Kansas?
Yep. It's very friendly.
Bus Stop happens to be one of my favorite shows. I've actually wanted to do it for a number of years, and my love of the show comes from the characters and the situation. I have a fascination about people being confined in a space where they can't get out of the space, and they have to resolve the issue in that space. I feel a lot of times nowadays we're running so fast that we never stop to take the time to figure out the problems. We look it up on the internet, or we solve it this way or that way, but we never take the time that we should be taking. And the beautiful thing about Inge and Bus Stop is you have 8 characters who are as unlikely to be in the same room as anyone faced with a problem they have to solve. And I find that fascinating. I don't feel it's a period piece. I feel it's a glimpse at a time when we talked to one another rather than texted one another or Facebooked one another to communicate. And I love the fact that the characters are so disparate, having nothing to do with one another, and they find a communication by being physically in the same place. Again, it goes back to the idea of taking the time to have a real conversation rather than communicating electronically. What I learned and what I felt very strongly that I hadn't realized as much, I thought it was totally about communication. But in fact, if you listen carefully and are not as dense as I think I must have been, it is an absolute treatise on love. It takes all these different characters, 8 different characters, all have a different point of view on love, a different outlook, and they're all seeking it. And it is really interesting how Inge intertwines how people view love in one piece of theater. And I was astonished how sharp and precise his observations were, and I don't think I was aware of that before. I was aware, of course, as everybody else is, of the Beau Cherry love story, but that's only one of the many love stories. I would say I'm the kind of director, it's different for every director, but I'm the kind of director who knows how it goes if the actors don't know. In other words, I block a show, block meaning tell the actors where to be on stage, in the first 2 days of rehearsal. I just zip through the show because I find that's the best way to get them so they feel free to move. Then everything changes as they begin to develop their characters. So yeah, I know what the show's about, I know what I want to say from it, and then I discover things, and then I bring those things out. But the actors very much, for me, inform how the story gets told. Bust Up was an interesting, very long process. I was determined that I did want to have every character be completely different. And that sometimes there is a sameness sometimes to actors who come to you in audition because they think there's a way to be. Very secure actors that I was blessed to get know that all they have to deal with is themselves and, how what lens they put the character through. And I was fortunate enough to find 8 amazingly different people who weren't afraid to show some of themselves, which is extraordinary because that's what I was looking for, and I finally found it. as a director, it's my point of view, which is not like any other point of view. And I've got 8 amazing actors who are doing the parts as I've never even imagined them to be done. So when you add that uniqueness on top of a set design by a designer that has worked for us over the entire length of the history of the theater, and add to it a sound designer and a lighting designer and a costume designer, each with their unique points of view. Every time, I think that is the uniqueness. Now, what's unique about each of us, you'll have to come and see.
This set will be my 35th. And one of the reasons I'm doing it, I'm basically retired. I retired from teaching 8 years ago, and about 3 years ago I decided it was time to retire design-wise. But I'd done 34 shows here, and that number just didn't sit right with me. And I wanted to boost it up to 35, and so we've been sort of watching for something to do. And they called early this spring, asked if I would do this, and everything seemed to be right. So I said, okay, we'll do it. And it's a show I've always loved. It's not one that I've ever done, so new experience. Most important thing, sit and read that script, figure out what that script is all about. And I've always designed specifically for a show. A lot of people design in such a way that you always know it's their design. There's elements that just repeat. They always know it's theirs. It's their style. And I've never really had a style. I've always said my style has to do with the show I'm doing at that moment and what's necessary and what's needed to make that show run and work. And I've always thought of a set design as sort of a machine that allows the show to happen. And so anyway, the script, I mean, that's it. The word, what's there. And getting the essence of that script and try to visualize it and put it on stage. And in terms of this, it's elements of things that I've experienced over a period of time. The boxed-in stairway back here, for instance, is something I have seen several times, actually, in old store buildings, and for whatever reason, sometimes it's fire code, sometimes it's just they want privacy for the stairs. They box in the stair that way. And it's just something I filed away, something I had back in the back of my mind, and I was able to pull it out to fit this situation, this set. The whole thing about what is going on outside is very important in this show. The snowstorm that's going on outside. And these windows that you're looking at right now are just blank white, but they're going to have some detail of frost and element. It's going to make things look a little cold and feel a little bit cold, and we have a little bit of snow going on outside and other things. We're still experimenting a bit with that. But the outside atmosphere for this show is very important, and you have to get that into the set so that it's obvious and clear.
I begin with the text. I begin, reading the script once through just to, have fun hearing the story, following any plot twists, getting to know the characters. And then I go back and I read it again, and I really pay attention to, when and where it's set, what kind of environment people are in, natural, artificial, imagined, whether there's something like a weather event, no spoilers, but that's our show, or whether it's something where there's a surreal environment that I'm trying to somehow create. So mostly I really just start with the text, and then after I feel like I understand what the play is trying to say, I talk to my director and hear, what they're thinking, in this case Susan, of course, hear what she thinks, what she wants to do, and how we feel like sound can function to help tell the story. So in this play, what I'm having fun working on right now is being able to go from, a big transition music or a pre-show sound, and then down into their world, and then when they open the doors, hearing that gust of cold air come in. I do a lot of listening on Spotify, which is a streaming service, and I buy my content from iTunes, so a lot of it is digital. I do sometimes record my own content, either in a studio environment or with a portable recorder. For example, if I needed the sound of footsteps overhead, I would whip out my portable recorder and record them right now, and then edit that down to work for whatever show I'm doing. I always love it when people notice things that work really well, but I think with this one, it's okay to let it wash over you. The sound really, instead of being a huge scenic or emotional factor, I think it's a subtle scenic and emotional factor. So, listen for the storm, listen for when it subsides, and then the tone of the actors at the top of Act 2. I think there's a really interesting shift that the playwright makes when he transitions from all of the energy in Act 1 to the more and more telescoping into the desolation of loneliness in Act 2. And, with that, the environment becomes a lot quieter. And I think that's a really strong choice that's implied in the text, and Susan and I are working to use that to our advantage.
There are 8 characters in the show, which means there are 9 costumes. So there's just one costume change for one of the girls. A lot of it for me is finding pieces, because it's set in 1955, so it's obviously a period piece. So I like to shop, I like to look in the stock that we have and then do thrift shopping, and it tends to, for me anyway, it tends to be, I know it when I see it as well. That's how I tend to do it. I sometimes shop online, on eBay. It's kind of just, all over the place really with where I go and where I get pieces from, and different stores that I know, and vintage places. And how do you make it look like these aren't costumes? That's the challenge. And then people seem to always, and I hate this word, but people use the word easy because, it's only 9 costumes, so this should be easy. And we don't use that word because it's actually harder, I feel, when you're looking at someone in just one thing for the whole show. You really have to get it right, otherwise it's distracting. So I find these pieces, I enjoy doing shows like this because of that, but I find it challenging too, because I think that you really have to, when the actor puts the costume on, it should feel right to him as the character, because if it doesn't in any way, that's going to come across. So I like to collaborate with the actors in fittings too, and make sure that I ask what, is this what you were thinking, and how do you feel about this? And so, it's never just, here, wear this, because I said so. It's definitely more like, we need to get the overall feel right for everyone involved. The character of Sherry is sort of loosely based. I know Marilyn Monroe played her in the movie, but I think the actual character is loosely based on that iconic kind of look that the girl definitely is, at that time period would look towards that look and want to, have her hair in that colour and definitely wear these type of clothes. And then, of course, you have a fitting and you talk to the actress about it too. And initially, before any of that, the director and I have talked through how she feels about the show. And so there's sort of layers on when you get, how you get to the end of it type of thing.
Bus Stop in the movie was done, it was Marilyn Monroe's foray into film. She really wanted to do this film. And Kim Stanley was the original on Broadway. And actually Marilyn Monroe spent a great deal of time with Kim Stanley because she so admired what she had done with it. I wish I could have seen it. But anyway, but the play was practically rewritten. It's 45 minutes into the movie before the play, anything from the play starts happening. What you miss in the movie is the depth of the characters Inge was creating. I love something, and I just want to read it to you. Stella Adler said, in her work on American master playwrights. She says, when it gets to basic, Inge is the purest writer. Not one line is a lie. It may be simple, it may be have a cup of coffee, but he means it. That's what I love about Inge. You're not looking for some metaphorical, distant thing. It's what he's saying, is what he's saying. I think that nowadays, I think we do have a craving for a simplicity and for a direct dealing with a problem. I personally get a little weary of symbolic theater and things that are kind of overblown, and try to be as complex as the society we're living in. I would think Inge would have a huge appeal at this time. You know, you see Tiny House Nation and living off the grid and things. There seems to be a desire in today's culture to simplify our lives.
Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to our lecture presentation. We sincerely hope that it enhances your experience of watching the play, because it is our mission to engage audiences and artists alike with exceptional performances, inspired writing, and superior productions that motivate us to think harder and to feel more deeply and to laugh more joyfully and to reflect on ourselves and the world in which we live. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Carol Erickson, now on the Bucks County Courier-Times. What are you doing Monday through Friday, 8, 10, and noon? What you should do is join me for local news, weather, traffic, and sports on the Courier-Times News Break. If you live here, work here, or just passing through, the information you need, fast and local. See you soon.